Cave dwellers hunted the horse for food. But as humankind evolved, so did its relationship with the horse. Humans began to see the horse as a noble creature, a loyal servant, and a true companion. And so it has been. For 5,000 years, the horse running with us through different lands and civilizations, through time and experience. Today, the services of the horse have been greatly diminished, but the bond between horse and human has never been stronger. Join us as we examine this fascinating relationship in a 6-part series, The Horse.
Up and over that final jump, and there's our new class-winning time.
When the first settlers came to Newfoundland's rugged shores, they brought with them hard-working companions who were familiar with harsh climates and hard work. These were the ponies: Dartmoors, Exmoors, Galloways, and other small, sturdy horses from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. For centuries, the Newfoundland pony played an essential role in the lives of people living on Canada's most easterly island. The pony contributed to all aspects of island life. The pony was also valued by many Newfoundlanders as a trusted partner, a dependable friend. Today, Newfoundland pony owners have a deep respect for the pony's cultural legacy, and also a personal fondness and admiration for this long-serving, big-hearted helper and companion.
The Newfoundland pony would never go in a barn if you didn't put them in. It doesn't make any difference if it's freezing, rain, snow, sleet, they'll still go out every time.
They're unique to this province because they've been here so long like we did.
The Newfoundland pony has a particularly good temperament. You can never find a bad one.
They each have their own personalities and preferences, but one thing they share in common is they all love attention.
That's my babies. Oh, my babies. Never mind that. Never you mind my babies.
This is the story of the Newfoundland pony. The earliest immigrants to Newfoundland settled in secluded coastal places close to the fishing grounds. By the 1700s, they were fending for themselves, selling salted cod to seasonal merchants, living on fish and root crops, and hunting seabirds and small game. They harvested trees from surrounding forests to build their houses and boats. Life was rough, and they needed all the help they could get. What better help than the strong, weather-resistant ponies from across the North Atlantic?
The settlers to Newfoundland no doubt brought some of these horses over. They were there for the taking. They ran wild on the moors, and whoever got them owned them. It seems to me that the principal type, which is now a breed in Britain, was the Exmoor from southwest England, but also the Dartmoor, which was nearby in southwest England, the Welsh pony, no doubt, the Connemara pony from Ireland. So there was a real cocktail of type to be found in the whole population.
For generations, the pony hauled loads of fish from the shore to drying flakes. They pulled tree stumps and hauled timber for building. In winter, they transported birch and spruce logs for firewood. After living, working and multiplying for at least 2 centuries in this harsh environment, the pony was no longer considered an Exmoor, a Dartmoor or a Galloway. By the 1800s, the pony had earned the name Newfoundland pony. It had adopted the best aspects of its ancestors across the Atlantic and was using them to thrive in the North American environment. Newfoundland pony owners proudly list the pony's distinguishing characteristics.
The Newfoundland pony was essentially a working horse, a draft animal. And as you would expect, the mechanics of a draft horse are that it's got power at the front end for leverage. So the Newfoundland pony has a thick neck, good trunk on him, narrow breast, which helps him in the winter, you see, not exposing himself to the chills. Quite long legs down to the knees, the forelegs, which gives, again, good purchase, good leverage. As to its head, the ears are always small. Once again, in his wisdom, the pony is conserving his heat, you know. He's not getting his ears frozen off in the winter. And it has a good, big, generous eye and a good muzzle. And he's quite broad in the mouth because, you know, he has to chew his way through a lot of vegetation that may not always be the best quality in order to live. Whether by elimination or natural progression, the Newfoundland pony has a particularly good temperament. You'll never find a bad one.
They have a lot of characteristics that help them survive the harsh climate in Newfoundland because they were outside all the time. So they have a very thick double coat and a very thick mane with an ice cap on their tail to keep the snow and the rain off the sensitive parts of their bodies. Above all, they have the most wonderful temperament. They are ponies that are very dependable, very sure-footed, very kind, and very intelligent. And so they're quite easy to train and become really wonderful family pets, but also really helpful partners in terms of farming, driving, riding, anything you like to do with them. They are really up to the task. They're a pleasure to work with.
The DNA of the Newfoundland pony is a little different than any of these other breeds they evolved from. So essentially, not totally correct, but as good as I can put it in layman's terms, evolved with the DNA almost to itself, which apparently by doing DNA tests, now this is only recent information, they can determine that it is Newfoundland pony.
I always tell people, like they say to me, what is a Newfoundland pony? Well, I skip all the bull, and I remember what happened to me with Newfoundland ponies. You know, like, I tell them that if there was 3 Clydesdales in a garden, down here, fenced in, and one Newfoundland pony, and you throw in a bunch of potato scraps in over the fence, the Newfoundland pony don't give eye contact to the Clydesdale before he kicks. He might pin his ears back and look at him, but he'll turn around and he don't care where he kicks, and he backs up, kicking as he goes, and drives them out of the way, and he'll get all the potato scraps, and Newfoundland pony, he'll get it all, the Clydesdales will get nothing.
As time passed, the pony proved to be indispensable to coastal families.
Almost every family had a pony, and the pony was used in all manner of ways. In many cases, there were no proper roads between communities. But in the winter, of course, with snow on the ground, it was much easier to travel, particularly with a horse and sled, from community to community.
For the most part, the pony in the Newfoundland rural community wasn't a farm animal. For a family, it was instrumental in getting all kinds of work done.
Its smallness made it very economical to keep, easy to keep. It was in the barn, and people would come from the house, the wife, the children, whatever, to go down and provide the horse with water and feed and brush it and so on. So it became part of the family. And it had such a good nature that there was no difficulty in using it that way, keeping it that way.
They were used as working animals, and they were used for traditional work in and around a property, and it was extremely common for every household or many households to have a pony or two to help out with the chores. They were also companion animals for the family and the kids, and a lot of people speak of having them.
Pony was a traditional way of life. It was in the barn, and it was well respected by Newfoundlanders, you know, like it was like having a car. And it was treated in the best of conditions because it hauled out your firewood, it helped you build houses, build all the fish flakes. Every bit of timber was pulled out of the woods was pulled out with Newfoundland ponies. All the farming was done, and all the ground was ploughed with Newfoundland ponies for, you know, for setting spuds and turnips and everything like that.
Generations of rural Newfoundlanders grew up with the Newfoundland pony ever present as part of the community and an important member of the family. In the 1950s, the population of Newfoundland ponies was about 6,000 animals. Then, in the 1960s, things began to change drastically in rural Newfoundland. Motorized vehicles and machines multiplied rapidly.
When the farm tractors came in and the quads and the trikes and everything like that, it changed the way people thought about doing their work, and it was faster to do the work, and to keep a Newfoundland pony was expensive.
Change was coming at the Newfoundland pony from all sides. Communities became more organized and regulated, restricting the movement of animals.
But when the councils came in, you had to bar up your animals, and then the government of Newfoundland designated pasture land for horses. So you had to take your ponies in the spring and truck them to pasture land where they stayed all summer, and in the fall of the year you'd go and pick them up and bring them home, and you'd work them in the woods again. So most Newfoundlanders, I would say, couldn't afford it. Then the pony started to disappear.
Rural life was changing into suburban life, and for many, the once cherished pony was becoming a burden. For the average family, it was no longer feasible to keep their pony. As it lost its value, the Newfoundland pony faced a precarious, if not disastrous, future.
Horse meat dealers, mostly from Quebec, discovered an easy market here because people would then sell the ponies for next to nothing, probably $50, and they would take them to the pet food market, but also for the human consumption market. Generally in Europe, places like Austria and Bavaria, places like that consider horse meat to be a delicacy. So they became in demand for that, and we went from, it was estimated 8,000 down to less than 100, and then less than 60 breeding animals. So, and that all happened within the space of 25 years.
Thousands of horses, mostly Newfoundland ponies, were trucked away to be slaughtered and sold for food in Canada and other places where horse meat was, and in some cases still is, an accepted menu item.
If we saw a pony that was going out on the truck, if we could persuade someone to give us enough money to buy that pony, we could save it. That's the kind of things we did. We'd go and pay $300 for the horse, and we'd try to save him that way in the beginning. I was obsessed with that meat truck that was going around the province, you see. So what I used to do, I'd go and I'd paint a picture like this, and then I'd find someone to buy it. And I'd get $1,200 or $1,000 at that time for a painting. And I'd take his check, and I'd get the check made out of the Canadian Farm Animal Care Trust. You use every trick in the book. But what I'd do, I'd buy that pony from somebody that was getting rid of it. I'd buy several ponies, right? They were all going out on the truck, so I'd buy them. And then I'd find a place to put them.
When we moved here, I saw the land and I said, I'm going to go out and buy myself a horse. In looking around for a riding horse for myself, I found neglected and abused animals that needed homes, needed proper homes. Many of them were going on meat trucks and just being sold for slaughter, and in deplorable conditions. Nobody would buy them at that point because they were starving and useless, basically, to most people who would spend money on a horse, except the meat man. So I started taking them home and building them back up, and then trying to find homes for them.
The truck comes to Newfoundland at least once a week, because it's usually been on Tuesday that we've had a deadline to get to the horse that's going to be put on the truck if we don't buy it before it goes to the truck. And incidentally, if somebody's going to buy the horse, you have to pay the meat price.
Somebody wants to unload a horse that they can't afford, or they're tired of, or whatever. You know, they want to get $1 for the horse. They're going to sell the horse to the person that comes to buy the horse, you know. And it's better to get a little bit of money for it than nothing. But I don't think they realize where the horse is going. I don't think they realize the, you know, the fate of the animal.
The rapid decline in population became more public. Horse lovers and other Newfoundlanders, alarmed by the plummeting numbers, were desperate to intervene. Something more than individual effort was needed. To bring one voice to the spreading concern, the Newfoundland Pony Society was formed. The first urgent action was to stop Newfoundland ponies from being shipped off to meat markets.
We complained to the federal vets about the conditions under which the ponies were being transported to the mainland for slaughter, and some action was taken, and that curtailed the exportation of ponies for slaughter to an extent.
The second challenge was to find the few genuine Newfoundland ponies still surviving.
Of course, we were dealing with a situation where we had very little to pick from. What we had to pick from happened to be the few that survived and hadn't been given a ride on the truck up until that point in time.
With some success in both of these efforts, the Society commenced work to establish a foundation stock from which new foals could be produced. A small number of mares and stallions were selected based on the Society's criteria. In all, there were only about 60 breeding mares and stallions left who qualified as genuine Newfoundland ponies. Russell's Queen was one of the first young mares to be included in the breed foundation. Skipper of Avalon was one of the first stallions.
They found Skipper, and he was quite in hard shape, but they were glad to find that he was certainly a Newfoundland pony and intact. And when they got him back in shape, they used him to breed lots of mares. And right now on the Newfoundland Pony Registry, there is 24 Newfoundland ponies that he has sired, and another 25 that he's grandsired that are registered. So it's 50, almost 50 offspring that he has sired himself. Oh, he's quite the ladies' man, from what I hear. I remember Cliff telling me that that he used to pull the trailer up in the driveway, and Skipper would run on the trailer himself because he knew he was going off to breed mares. And still now, if someone comes with a trailer, he goes with his head up. He's acting like a stallion. He thinks he's going. He's very excited to see a trailer.
Renee shows off Maximus, another pony grandsired by Skipper.
When Max was born, he was actually brown, and he was born with a number 7 right on his forehead. So I had named him Maximus of Avalon's Lucky 7. But since then he's changed his color, and I guess he's going to end up being white like his father and his grandfather. So, but he's a nice animal. Sometimes he's got a quirky personality. He'll torment you out in the garden. Skipper used to do that to me all the time. Like, he might grab you by the jacket and just hang on to you because he knows he can and you can't get away from him. Not trying to bite or anything, just being silly. And sometimes he's got the stubborn side of Skipper too, and Skipper's known for that. Sometimes, you know, he wants to do his own thing, and if you let him away with it, he will. So Max got a little bit of that in him as well. Sometimes you need to be a bit firm with him, but other than that, I mean, he's great. Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
Although their number was still limited by the late 80s and early 90s, the newly established foundation stock was beginning to make a difference. But the struggle was not over yet. About the same time, interest from outside Newfoundland was growing.
A lot of ponies were exported to good breeders in Ontario and BC, and I think Ontario now has the largest number of Newfoundland ponies of any province in the country. That's a good thing, because the breed might well have died out had it not been for mainland interest. A bit of irony there, you know.
Here at Deerfield Farm, we're the oldest and biggest breeder of Newfoundland ponies outside of Newfoundland. We started in 1995 in breeding these ponies, and we've bred almost 30 ponies, which is quite a lot considering that when we started there were fewer than 100 breeding age Newfoundland ponies to start with.
Good boy. Yes.
We've had to work with people in Newfoundland to identify the foundation stallions and find ponies that we can buy to start our breeding program. Then we have them shipped here to Deerfield Farm, where we really focus on breeding a range of the foundation stallion lines, and ensuring that there's genetic diversity among these ponies, because they're such fantastic heritage animals.
Diana's husband's family is originally from Newfoundland, and these ponies have been in his family for about 200 years.
My grandmother, she's originally from Daniels Harbor on the west coast, and growing up we used to visit her there, and you know, Daniels Harbor had all sorts of animals free-ranging in those days, back in the early 60s into the 70s. Certainly a lot of ponies, horses, oxen, etc. So I knew they existed. So you fast forward into the early 90s, and we heard about the plight of the pony, discussed it with my grandmother, learned a lot through her, and then just decided, because we were already breeding horses, to get involved.
But it was really after my husband went on a trip with his father to Newfoundland, and they learned that what a predicament the breed was in, and that there were search parties going across the island trying to find these animals. My husband called and said, you know, I finally saw some Newfoundland ponies, and there was a foal born this morning, and he told me how small the numbers were and how few and scarce they were. And I said to him, so, did you buy one? He said, no, don't worry, I bought 2. I said, so I guess we're breeding Newfoundland ponies now. And he said, yeah, I think that's where we're going to focus our efforts. So that's how that started.
This is Biotics Blueberry. He's a 13-year-old Newfoundland pony stallion. I guess the first thing that we're quite happy about is that he's a son of one of the original 8 stallions they found back in 1994. He's off of a pony known as Prince Tamarack, who was off of Random Island. Blueberry himself is a smaller sized Newfoundland pony stallion. He's about 12 hands and about 600 pounds. He probably is a little more flashy, a little more hot-blooded than some of the Newfoundland pony stallions we have. Because of his diminutive size, he's quite easy to handle, so that's not an issue. But he just has a lot of spirit. He's very intelligent, so if you run through something once, he gets it the next time. He's trained on harness, he's trained on saddle, but the main job he does for us is breeding. But we find through breeding, he passes his qualities on to his foals, and we've been very happy with what he's produced to us to date. And he's really an important part of the Newfoundland pony legacy, and we plan to keep him for many years to come.
Change Islands, Newfoundland, surrounded by the choppy waters of Notre Dame Bay. This rugged but picturesque setting is not unlike the home of the Newfoundland pony's ancestors across the Atlantic. The sparse but nutritious vegetation, moderate summers and cold, windy winters are similar to what the Dartmoor, Exmoor and Galloway ponies thrived on. It's here you'll find Beverly Stevens, a woman with a newfound passion for keeping the Newfoundland pony breed alive. In 2004, Beverly read a report in a Newfoundland magazine, The Down Homer, which raised the alarm. In spite of brave efforts by pony lovers over the past decade, the Newfoundland pony might still be near extinction.
I left Newfoundland in 1974, and there were herds of ponies roaming on the southern shore where I lived for a few years, and I had no idea the decimation that had happened. It just broke my heart to even read about it. And coincidentally, 2 or 3 days later, my husband and I were going to Fogo Island, and there was a notice on the bulletin board on the ferry, Newfoundland pony for sale, and we found this Newfoundland pony tied to a hydro pole in Tilting. And we both fell in love with him. His name is Prince. I had nothing to do with horses until I saw Prince tied to that hydro pole, and really felt that someone had to do something. One of the things that really had to be done in Newfoundland was a breeding program. Lots of people have 1 or 2 or 3, but to have a concentrated effort to work in conjunction with the Newfoundland Pony Society, that's really what they wanted to have done. And I thought Change Islands was the perfect place to do it. And we now have 13, with 5 born on Change Islands in the last 2 years. So it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
A half-day's drive from Change Islands in Blaketown, Mac LeMessurier has been breeding the Newfoundland pony for the last 20 years and has sent new ponies all across Canada.
I've had a passion for horses since I was about 3 years old. This is what I call my hobby. My wife calls it my golf, but it is my hobby, and it's really the only hobby I've had and the only passion.
Besides strengthening the overall breed by providing ponies to people outside Newfoundland and Labrador, Mac is also intent on cultivating interest in the Newfoundland pony locally among the younger generation.
I've had the liking for the Newfoundland pony to try to, do my part if there was anything I could do to try to jump on the bandwagon as such and be a part of the re-establishment of the breed. My passion too is for trail riding and just, to take off for a couple hours on a nice day. And I mean, you can take a Newfoundland pony too and saddle them up and go on a trail ride just the same as you can any other animal as well. I grew up and always had a liking and interest for horses, but never really had any exposure to it as I've never had my own. And when I was about 17 or 18, I met Mac and Kay LeMessurier here in Blaketown and kind of introduced me to the horses and invited me up to start to learn to groom and ride them. And like I said, it was at that time then that they introduced me to the Newfoundland ponies, and I got hooked ever since then. I mean, everybody has their own thing, it's about finding a passion for something that you really like to do, and for me it was hanging out at the barn. I used to get complaints because I didn't always smell the best when I got home, but obviously it was a pastime for me, and it was something for me to do. I could spend 12 or 14 hours a day in the barn. It was a great time for me.
It seems no one is too young to be bitten by the pony bug. Jonathan used to spend all his time with friends like most 11 or 12-year-olds, but his new pony has changed all that.
He's a Newfoundland pony miniature cross. He's a mixture. His dad's a miniature and his mom's a Newfoundland pony. I have to clean out his stall every day. For the horse, I have to feed him twice a day. I have to ride him. I have to brush him. I have to wash him. I have to make sure he's clean and healthy. But most importantly, I have to love him. So for about 2 weeks after we got him, he would stand up in the top of his pen and just stare at the ocean while the waves come in. Just stare, just stand there and stare at the waves. And I'd look up and I'd be like, what is the horse doing? And I was like, oh my God, like, he loves the waves, like me.
No doubt, through past generations, many a Newfoundland pony and many a 12-year-old depended on each other the way these two do. Jonathan learned everything he knows from Judy Moss, a true horse lover, and she's shared lots of childhood pony memories with him.
Father promised me this little pony, which was down the field where I lived, and I struck up a real good, close relationship with the pony. I used to save my lunch, and so the pony got quite used to me, and then the time came for me to bring it home, and I didn't even have a barn. My mother didn't know, and of course, we had to break the news to her that we had a pony, and it started to snow, and all we had was a typical Newfoundland woodshed. So my father said, now that's okay, he's all right there, and the snow's not going to hurt him for a night till I get a couple of men up, and we'll get this straightened out tomorrow. Of course, I looked out, and snow was falling and started to fall on his back, so I went out in the cover of the night, and I made a little spot in the shed that I thought was good for a pony, not knowing anything about a pony at the time. And I tied him onto the workbenches of the shed, forgot to remove the paint. Got up the next morning and he was yellow from the stomach right down. He had knocked over the paint. It was a horrible mess, and lawn chairs were beaten and broken up. So that's how I started.
Jonathan's sense of caring and dedication is also what Stephanie gives to the old ponies that have eluded the infamous meat truck. Located in the rural setting of Hopal Trinity Bay, it's a welcoming place where ponies go to heal and live out their lives in peace and tranquility.
This sanctuary is HAPA NL. It's the Horse and Pony Protection Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. So we take in horses and ponies that people can't look after anymore, or they just don't want to. So we kind of rescue them, like a rescue operation. This is our memory lane. It's where all the horses and ponies that we've had in the past, if they passed away, we planted a cross to remember each one. Each one has touched us in some way, and we really do want to remember them, and we want to be able to tell people about them and their background and how much they meant to us and how we helped them. You get to know them, and they've each got a personality, and you fall in love with each one like they were a person.
Tickle Cove Pond, a song written in the 1800s by a singer and songwriter from Bonavista Bay. The song tells the true story of a Newfoundland pony named Kit, who tries to warn her owner that the ice they're about to cross with a load of wood is too dangerous. The driver ignores the pony's warning. The ice gives way, and into the icy water they plunge. Were it not for the help of friends and neighbours, the pony and its owner would have drowned. Tickle Cove Pond is a favourite Newfoundland folk song, recorded by professional musicians, sung by symphony choirs, and memorised by school children. only one of the reminders of how much the pony is a part of this cultural landscape.
Against the ice road, she knew more than I did, as matters turned out. Been lucky for me had I joined her in doubt. She turned round her head with tears in her eyes, as if she was saying, you're risking our lives. And if I had taken wise kitties out.
In the printed word too, the Newfoundland pony appears as a main character. This children's book features another pony named Kit. This Kit gets into a different kind of trouble, with consequences not nearly as dire as almost drowning. This Kit's troubles come from a case of mistaken identity. The real culprit turns out to be not Susan's Newfoundland pony, but a young bull moose with a huge appetite for turnip tops. The book is a favourite among Newfoundland's youngest readers. Like singers and storytellers, visual artists also keep the Newfoundland pony tradition alive.
This horse is called Annie of Avalon. It's a pony that's deceased that I owned. I owned a big farm up here, big piece of land, not a farm, big piece of land. And I got a bunch of men to work the land, cut the wood, so that I could historically document the last people working in the woods around here with Newfoundland ponies. What I do is think back to the old days, and this is where my father used to go cutting wood up the water chute path. And this is an old-fashioned bobsled that my father made. When I get this finished, it's about the Newfoundland pony and Stephen teaching his young boy how to bring the wood out of the woods with a bobsled. And this Newfoundland pony depicts that you don't have to have a good path in the woods. In the fall year when it's cold and brisk and you get a little bit of snow trickling through the old boughs and everything, because the pony is able to walk in narrow paths and he's sure-footed, you see. After I captured the feeling of the mystery of the woods, the whole feeling and the interaction that's going on between the boy and the horse, what we used to do then was bob that wood out over all the boughs, and the horse was sure-footed. It would take it all the way down about half a mile down to the main road. The Newfoundland pony, you see, to me, is bred into me. That I dream and think about Newfoundland ponies, honest to God.
Newfoundlanders are proud of the Cliff George paintings they own. Not just for their rich, colourful depiction of the sturdy, hard-working little pony, but also just as much for the very forceful role this artist's work played in reversing the fate of the Newfoundland pony. His art not only drew attention to the cause, but it actually raised money that enabled Cliff and others to take action. Action that pulled the Newfoundland pony back from the brink of extinction. And action they'll have to keep up to meet the challenges ahead. The Newfoundland pony still needs full recognition by the Government of Canada. In order for that to happen, the pony still needs to go through a national registration process. Steps like defining more systematically what a Newfoundland pony is, proper DNA testing, and of course registering all the ponies that do exist, not just in Newfoundland, but across the country.
Right now, the latest statistics say we have 369 registered Newfoundland ponies. So that's gone from the 144 to 369, and there are a lot of Newfoundland ponies that aren't registered. There were 12 born last year, overall, not just in Newfoundland. And I believe there's 20 births this year. So, you know, once they get in the registry, those numbers will start, showing. One of my main concerns is to bring up the numbers in Newfoundland. And I'd like to see a Newfoundland pony in every cove in Newfoundland. Then, yeah, I think we'll be a success. I think the Newfoundland pony will be a success.
Oh my goodness, look.
Success. The recovery of the population and the establishing once and for all the Newfoundland pony as a fully recognized breed. That success really needs the continued heroic efforts of the Newfoundland Pony Society. And though there are only 150 society members across the country, they don't shy away from the challenges. They are committed to educating people about the past and the future of the Newfoundland pony.
That we'll see the pony recognized on a Canada Post stamp. And it's for that I sincerely thank you.
The Canadian stamp, a sign that the people of Canada have acknowledged the Newfoundland pony as one of the threads of the fabric of our Canadian heritage. For the Newfoundland Pony Society and for all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, this historic occasion speaks well for the future.
These animals worked hard to ensure the survival of our ancestors, and in return we will continue to work hard to ensure their survival into the future.
The Newfoundland pony is an animal well worth preserving. And
the official unveiling brings hope that the Newfoundland pony is regaining a place on the rocky island where it came into being, and spreading its recognition and popularity to places beyond Newfoundland and Labrador. The Newfoundland pony came precariously close to extinction. But the good news is the numbers are on the rise.
We have breeders right across the country now, right across to BC. There's some in Alberta. There's certainly a number in Ontario now. Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, a few in New Brunswick, and down into the States, New York State and Michigan. So it's growing gradually. We do have a core of dedicated breeders now. The critical thing now is to continue to increase the numbers. Because as we can increase the numbers and more people know about the pony and learn about the pony, it's really going to guarantee their survival in the future.
The strong, resilient, good-natured pony is coming back. The determination and hard work of a small group of dedicated people in Newfoundland and abroad has given promise to a bright Newfoundland pony future.